So, it's 2 a.m., you're lying in bed, tired but wired. Maybe you're doom scrolling. Maybe you're just trying to relax before another long, soul-sucking day of modern existence. But what if, just for a little while, swapped Wi-Fi for whispers and sterile syringes for steaming cauldrons of mystery fluid? Tonight, we return to a simpler, dirtier time. Medieval Europe. Specifically, to one of the most terrifying and weirdly trusted figures of the day. Not the king, not the priest, not even the stable boy with secrets. No, I'm talking about your friendly neighborhood barber-surgeon. A man with a blade, a bowl, and about 5 opinions too many on how to treat gangrene with pigeon fat. Let's set the scene. You wake up in a drafty, lice-breeding hovel. There's straw in your socks, a suspicious stain on your only blanket, and someone's goat is chewing your curtain. But you are not just another peasant today. No, you've trained, watched the elders, practiced on turnips, and that one unfortunate. Pig. You are a barber-surgeon, medieval multi-tool, equal parts stylist, blood drainer, and amateur chiropractor. Why this job? Well, because nobody else would do it. University-educated physicians didn't touch patients, lest they get commoner cooties. Priests were busy blessing people into the grave. So when your neighbor fell off a roof and broke his leg, it was your time to shine. You had a saw, a smile, and very few moral hesitations. Congratulations, let's talk tools. You carry a kit that would give modern OSHA agents a panic attack. Rusty knives, blunt scissors, a saw so dull it could double as a butter spreader. You've got a jar of leeches, because too much blood was apparently a medical diagnosis. And if you're particularly fancy, maybe a cauterizing iron that smells like toasted regret. There's also twine for stitches. But let's be honest, you learned to stitch from a woman who darned socks with 2 fingers and a toothpick. Your patients don't get precision. They get hope. And what about education, you ask? That's adorable. You learned everything you know from a combination of hearsay, guesswork, and watching your master yell at unconscious people. Maybe, if you're lucky, you own a book. Not to read, of course, just to display so people think you're literate. It's mostly for show. Like a modern diploma, but bound in questionable goat leather still. You've got something better than schooling. Confidence. The raw, unwavering, unjustified confidence of a man who once extracted a tooth with pliers. And it wasn't even the right one, but the patient thanked him anyway. Now, let's talk customers. You've got a wide clientele. Farmers with boils, nobles with swords lodged in inconvenient places, children with mystery rashes, and parents who swear it's just the humors acting up. You don't ask too many questions. You diagnose by smell and treat by instinct. Today's first visitor, a baker with a swollen foot the size of a prize-winning pumpkin. He hobbles in, moaning about demons, curses, and a sharp pain near his heel. You nod solemnly. You stroke your beard. You make noises like whom, and ah, yes, the spleen missed. Then, you pour vinegar on his leg, sprinkle herbs that probably died last spring, and announce that he needs to be bled. He resists. You smile patiently, lovingly, and then you show him the leeches. Ah yes, leeches. The medieval miracle cure. An all-purpose solution for headaches, heartbreak, and unfortunate warts. You slap 3 on his leg, and watch them wiggle with joy. Is this helping? Nobody knows. But it's tradition, and that counts for more than science here. He thanks you, gives you a half-stale roll as payment, and hobbles away looking paler, but convinced. Next up, a monk with toothache. His face is puffed up like a roasted turnip, and he's crying softly into his robes. You offer him comfort, and by comfort, you mean yanking the tooth with a pair of pliers previously used on a chicken coop. There is no anesthesia. There is no mercy. You count to 3, lie at 2, and yank at 1. Screams fill the air. Children cry. Dogs bark. Somewhere, a widow clutches her rosary tighter, and you hold up the molar like it's the crown jewels, then drop it in a bowl next to 12 others. You've started a collection. By midday you've drained 3 villagers, reattached 1 ear backwards, but who's checking? And attempted to lance an abscess that turned out to be just a very angry mole. V. Eaten nothing but bread crusts and a suspicious egg. Someone gave you in thanks. Time for a house call. You gather your sack of horrors and trek to the manor house, where Lady Margaret has a mysterious fainting spell. Spoiler, she's pregnant. But nobody knows that, because nobody understands anatomy beyond the liver is sad. You walk in. The walls are made of stone. The floors are also stone. And cold. The air smells like perfume. And regret. Lady Margaret swoons dramatically. Her maids gasp on cue. Her husband looks mildly concerned, but mostly annoyed his dinner will be late. You take her pulse. You listen to her chest. You nod, as if you know what you're doing. Then you announce, her humors are misaligned. Nobody knows what that means, but they nod solemnly. You prescribe a diet of barley water, rest, and bleeding always bleeding, and suggest she sleep with garlic under her pillow for spiritual balance. You're paid in coin and compliments. You pocket the silver and avoid mentioning that your hands haven't been washed since last Michaelmas. The day wears on. You see a man who claims his wife is possessed. You nod. You don't deal with demons, but you do sell a garlic hand vinegar tonic that wards off evil spirits and also clears the sinuses. You mark it up 400%. He buys 3 bottles. A soldier limps in with an arrow wound. You offer to remove the shaft. He asks about pain relief. You hand him a stick to bite down on. It's a very sturdy stick. You pour wine on the wound not because it helps, but because you need courage. You tug, you twist, you pray. The arrow comes out. So does a bit of something squishy. You hope it wasn't important. He passes out. You stitch him up with pigot and good intentions. He lives. You're a hero by nightfall. Your apron is soaked in blood. Your tools look like props from a nightmare. And you're starting to hear the whisper of ghost sore. Maybe it's just Geoffrey the drunk weaver again. You settle into your corner of the tavern, exhausted but proud. You've pulled teeth, sliced abscesses, stitched wounds, and only lost 1 toe, not yours. Your fellow townsfolk eye you, with a mix of awe and terror after all. You're not just a man with scissors. You're the local healer. The miracle worker. The guy who knows how to make someone scream, and thank you for it. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Assuming you don't catch plague. But that's another story. So here you are again. The moon is hanging like a dull silver coin in the sky. Your boots are wet with things you'd rather not examine. And the stars above look just slightly judgmental. But no matter. You are not a baker, not a cooper, not a candle maker with wax under your nails. No. You are a barber-surgeon. And tonight, your services are needed. Again, your satchel squelches slightly as you walk. That's either the jar of leeches or the mashed poultice you forgot about 3 days ago. It doesn't matter. Someone screamed near the mill house, and wherever there's screaming, there's coin. Or at least old cheese. You accept both. Let's rewind just a touch. You were nearly asleep, tucked under your thatch-roof bed of itchy wool, dreaming of a life where your patients didn't bleed quite so much. You'd just removed your boots on event, considered romantic in some villages, when there came a knock. No, not a knock, a pounding. A fist-shaped cry for help, wrapped in panic and desperation. You sighed. Of course, it was Miller Tom again. The man had more accidents than teeth. You opened the door, and there he was, hair wild, tunic soaked, holding one hand aloft like it was auditioning for martyrdom. "I think I sliced it off," he bellowed. "Which part?" You asked because experience had taught you not to assume. He showed you a flap of skin, a meaty wound, and a faint whiff of regret. So now, here you are, standing in his mill house by torchlight, examining his hand while he sweats onto your shoulder. The cut is ugly, deep, and curiously bread-scented. You squint. It looks like someone tried to fillet a trout and missed except the trout was human and screaming. You reach for your needle and picket thread. Tom winces. "Will it hurt?" You give him the time-honored reply, "Only if you're alive." You don't work in silence. You hum. Rhythmic. Off-key. A barber-surgeon's lullaby passed down through generations. It soothes nobody, but it fills the air as your needle goes in and out. In and out, like a tiny, angry sewing spirit. Tom bites down on a ladle, not a stick. You ran out of sticks last week. By the time you're done, his hand resembles a wounded dumpling. But the bleeding has slowed, the stitches hold, and no bone is showing. Victory, he thanks you with a half sack of oats, and a chicken that may or may not be cursed. You trudge home, but sleep. You know better. A barber-surgeon's night is as restful as a catapult launch. Sure enough, you barely close your eyes before there's another knock. This one is softer, polite. You open the door, it's Elsbeth, the widow with the wandering eye and 17 mysterious ailments. She's holding her child, a toddler who looks like he's eaten a beehive and lost. My son, she whispers, he's got the swelling again. You peer at the boy. Yep. His face is round, red, and radiating heat. Classic mump-plague-rash-fever. You nod gravely, because that's what healers do when they have no clue. You touch his forehead. Sniff behind his ear for reasons no one understands. Then pull out your vinegar cloth and murmur something about cleansing the humors. You give her a syrup of ground, sage, honey, and an optimistic mushroom. He might feel better. He might also hallucinate dragons. It's a gamble. Everything is. Still, she slips you a coin. Actual metal. You haven't seen one in weeks. You bow. As she leaves, and as the wind picks up outside, your shutters rattle like guilty teeth. You settle in again. At this rate, you'll see your bed in spring. Let's talk lice. Because if you're a barber in medieval Europe, you're also a delicer, and no one's ever grateful. A merchant visits you the next morning, fancy hat and all, says his scalp itches like the devil's armpit. You sit him down, drape a cloth, pull out your comb, which is equal parts wood, steel, and despair. You part his hair and stare into the abyss. There they are, tiny specks, crawling like guilt. Whole civilizations of lice dancing jigs between his follicles. You sigh. Time for oil, ash, vinegar, and elbow grease. He groans. You hum by the end. Your fingers are black with soot. Your eyes are watering. And he's demanding a mirror. There were more, you say quietly, but some escaped. He shrieks, pays you double, and runs to the church for a blessing. You should ask for a commission from the clergy. Now, about that church. Brother Oswin sends for you next. Says one of the novices fainted during matins. You follow him to the abbey. It's chilly. Smells like old books and older feet. The novice is sprawled by the altar, eyes fluttering, hands twitching. You check his pulse. It's frantic. His breath. Rapid his robe. Suspiciously damp. You wave a candle over him. No reaction. You lean close. Whisper, "Did you eat anything funny?" His eyes snap open. "I drank the bishop's wine." You nod. Diagnosis: intoxication, guilt, and possibly divine wrath. You prescribe a nap, a blessing, and a stern conversation with the wine steward. The monks thank you with a loaf of bread and a scroll of dubious Latin. Back home, you hang the scroll on the wall, upside down, next to your honorary bone saw. Let's talk battlefield medicine, because yes, dear friend, sometimes you're called beyond the village. When war knocks, even the lowliest barber-surgeon gets conscripted. You remember your last trip clearly. The field was muddy. The air reeked of iron and sweat. Men screamed. Horses died dramatically. And you were in the center of it all, with one tub of boiled water, 5 linen rags, and a pair of tongs that doubled as cutlery. A soldier had taken a spear to the thigh. You inspected it. Deep wood still lodged. Blood pulsing. You asked the usual question, "Do you want to live?" He said yes. You poured wine over the wound. Not for cleanliness, for ceremony. Then you dug in. The screams were biblical. Birds fled. The sky, a nearby night, vomited. But the spear came out. You packed the hole with moss, cleanish, wrapped it tight, and told him to keep pressure on it and avoid death for the next 48 hours. He lived, probably. You're still not sure. You left before the tent collapsed. The battlefield taught you things. That men bleed like pigs. That pigs scream like men. That pain smells the same, whether noble or peasant. and that when you stitch a wound under the gaze of 10 dying soldiers, you become something both feared and needed, like fire or taxes. Back in the village, you are now the man who saw war, which means more customers. A shepherd with a bent back, a girl with a lump under her arm, a priest with strange spots and no intention of confessing how he got them. You see it all. You poke, prod, slice, dice, and hope. That's the secret, really. Hope. Because you're not a doctor, not really. You're a barber who believes, who tries. You believe that a poultice of garlic and nettles might cure fever. You believe that bloodletting on Tuesdays is luckier than on Fridays. You believe that your prayers matter, even if your knife is dull. You believe, most importantly, that someone must help, because no one else will. And so, as the village sleeps beneath crooked stars and whispering roofs, you pack your tools again. Because somewhere, someone is about to trip, choke, groan, or discover a pimple the size of a bean, and when they do, they'll come knocking. You'll answer, you always do. It is another sleepless dawn. The sky is a pale bruise, the kind of sky that says, hope, not yet. The crows are laughing in the rafters, and you are a brave, sleep-deprived, sweetly unwashed barber-surgeon watching your boots try to walk away without you. You smell of vinegar, blood, and ambition. There's a feather in your beard. Not a fashion choice. Just a pigeon-related incident you haven't had time to process. Because last night was legendary. But let's not rush. Let's start with the pole. Yes, that pole. The red and white candy cane of doom. The spiraled sentinel that hangs outside your hut, waving like a drunken ribbon dancer. Alerting every man, woman, and boil-ridden baby that you are open for business. Why the stripes? Because symbolism. The red is blood. The white is the bandage. The twist is the process blood flows. You bind it. Life staggers forward. Barbers like you hung these poles outside your shacks as a kind of menu. Come here for shaves, slices, and silent screaming. You didn't invent the symbol, but oh, you live it. Take last evening, you were just polishing your blade, hopeful act, really when, in stumbled Edric the lovesick, eyes red, knees wobbling, moaning like a cow with poetry sickness. She left me, he wailed, flinging himself into your lap. You checked his pulse out of habit, fast and dispirited and romantic, in the worst way. Now, heartbreak was not an official illness, but it was certainly an epidemic. And you, bless your soot-covered soul, had a cure. You called it the heart salve. Step 1, crushed rose petals. Romantic, symbolic, mostly dust. Step 2, pigeon heart, boiled in rainwater under moonlight. Why pigeon? Because they mate for life. Supposedly also, they're easy to catch. You lit the fire. You reached for your cauldron. You muttered a prayer, not because you're pious, but because sometimes the gods need entertainment too. You dropped in the heart. It sizzled like gossip. Then you stirred, slowly, dramatically, like a wizard or a man who's just winging it really hard. Edric sobbed into his sleeve. You gave him the cup. Drink, you said, and dream no more of her ankles. He drank. He retched. He cried. He left an hour later. He was seen dancing shirtless near the town well, singing songs to a bucket success. Now back to the present. Your hut is full. A queue of misery stretches past the threshold. Children cough. Women clutch mysterious jars. Men show you things that should never be shown without warning. You take it all in stride. There's a rhythm to your day. Now, slice, stitch, spit, pray, boil, bleed. First comes Henrietta, whose wart has grown its own personality. You apply garlic. She hisses. It's working then. Giles, who swears something's moving under his skin. You listen, nothing. You nod anyway. Prescribe leeches. Leeches fix everything. Then a chicken pecks your ankle. You suspect revenge. You mark it for the pigeon pot now. Here comes Father Aldwin, tall, pale, eyebrows like Gothic arches. And he's limping, like sin itself is chewing his foot. What happened, you ask? He hesitates, mumbles. You lift the robe. Regret immediately. An infected toe, black, pulsing. Smells like a sermon that went too long. You glance at your saw. Then at him, he sees it. No, he breathes. Yes, you whisper. You give him a cup of poppy wine, the good stuff. Smells like old grapes and forgiveness. He drinks. He slumps. You work. There is no elegance in toe removal. There is sawing, sweating, swearing. Sizzling you cauterize, of course. When it's done, you cradle the toe like a relic. Then toss it into the pit behind your hut. A rat drags it off like treasure. A holy snack, a miracle. The priest will walk again. Slightly less. Your hands shake. You sip stale cider. You press on because now comes the hardest case of all. The widow. Margaret's daughter. She's 6. Feverish breathing like a bellows. That's seen too many winters. You check her, eyes yellowed. You check her tongue, dry as baked chalk. You look at Margaret. She's hollow-eyed, wrung out. She's holding a rag and 3 prayers. She hasn't said aloud. You say nothing, instead. You reach for the tonic of willow bark and ash. You drip it down the girl's throat. You sit by her all night. You wipe her brow. You sing an old song. One your mother sang. One you barely remember. She doesn't die. She doesn't wake. But she breathes, slow, steady. It is enough. Morning arrives on broken wings. Your hut smells of herbs, sweat, and salvation. You haven't slept, but you've saved 3 lives, maybe. For you light a candle. You place it by your pole. And as the flame flickers, so do you. Wavering, still burning, still needed. Still barber, still surgeon, still trying. And tomorrow the queue will grow again. Because someone will cough. Someone will fall. Someone will lose a finger in a woodcutting accident and swear it was the fault of the moon. And they'll come to you. The man with the leeches. The man with the knife. The man with the pole that says, yes, I will help. Or I will try. And isn't that the same thing? Sleep. No. Not you. Not tonight. Not ever, it seems. You tried. You really did. You tucked yourself beneath your burlap blanket, nestled between your satchel of dried herbs and a copy of the humors, and you, a cleric's guide to guesswork, and closed your eyes. But dreams are loud when you're a barber-surgeon. They don't whisper, they scream. The faces come back, the screams echo. The leeches crawl, even when they're gone. You can still feel the toe from yesterday, still hear it. Drop into the bone pit with a wet little thud. Sleep is for people with normal jobs. You live where normal fears to tread, because now it's here. The whispers started last week. Old Elric's skin turned black overnight. Tomlin's daughter coughed blood into the bread bowl. The rats are bold again. The priests are burning incense every morning. You've seen the signs. The swellings under the arms. The weeping sores. The fear. It's not a cut or a bruise this time. Not a tooth to pull or a fever to bleed. It's worse. Older. Hungrier. They call it the Great Mortality in Latin. But here, in your tiny village of gods and goats, they just call it the rot. And now they come to you, like frightened sheep trailing smoke. Because the physicians fled. The nobles locked their gates. The monks, bless their paranoid souls, are drinking vinegar and praying in separate rooms. So now it's you again. You with your knife and your beard. You, who smells of burnt herbs and desperation. You, the last wall between your neighbors and the grave. First comes Tom, the blacksmith. 6'3", arms like boiled hams, and crying like a wet child. I've got it, he says, voice thick. The buboes, they're coming. You nod. You don't say bubonic. That's too clean a word for what's happening. You lift his shirt there, beneath his ribs, a lump the size of a plum, angry, hot, pulsing. You check for more, one in the armpit, another near the groin. You whisper, do you trust me? He nods, eyes closed. You sharpen your knife on the whetstone, with the precision of a monk lighting a candle. Then you slice. The bubo bursts like a rotten fruit. The smell could stop a war. You do not flinch. You press a rag soaked in vinegar and mustard oil because science. No, because your grandmother once told you it works. And she survived 3 husbands and a lightning strike. You stitch what you can, you drain what you can't. You pray, just a little. Tom survives the night. That's more than most. Next is Marion the Weaver, cheeks sunken, eyes wild. She's clutching a bundle wrapped in linen. You unwrap it. It's her child, a boy, maybe 5, maybe 6. His lips are blue. His chest barely moves. His hands clutch a sprig of lavender, like it'll bring him back from the edge. You listen. There's breath but faint. You cradle him. You mix a tonic of elderflower and soot. You rub his feet. You slap his cheeks. You beg. He does not wake, but he does not die. You tell Marion to sing. She does. A lullaby in a language that predates logic. You leave them with a candle, a prayer, and a crushed garlic clove beneath his tongue. Why? Because sometimes superstition is all you have. It spreads faster than reason. By morning, the baker has closed his shutters. The blacksmith is gone. The priest walks in circles, muttering psalms, while holding his robes above the ground. People hang herbs in their doorways. Rosemary, mint, dead rat feet. Anything they think might ward it off. You try to help. You burn damp straw with thyme and blow the smoke under doors. You cut open more lumps than you care to count. You give every child a ribbon soaked in rose water and tell them it's magic. You lie, because truth is too heavy. But then the noble summons you. Sir Alric de Wexbridge, lord of the manor, wearer of silk, owner of 3 functioning teeth and 2 opinions worth hearing. He sends his page with a parchment. Come, my son is ill, and the city doctor refuses to travel. You arrive at the gate. They douse you in wine before letting you through. Purification, they mutter. Inside gold gleams. There's music, perfumed cloths, fresh bread, and fear wears a mask of luxury. The boy is lying beneath a curtain of lace, face gray, skin slick, buboes forming. You kneel beside him. Sir Ulrich speaks. Heal him. You say nothing. You reach for your knife. It's different here. The rooms are clean. The air doesn't smell of goats or mildew, but death. It smells the same. You cut. You clean. You pour old wine on wounds and hope the grapes remember when they were strong. You whisper a rhyme your mother used when foxes howled outside the window. You wait 3 days. You stay. You sleep on hay in the servants' quarters, dreaming of lice, with your face and children with no eyes. You boil water until your hands crack. You make poultices from camphor and pigeon dung. You try everything, and on the 4th dawn, the boy breathes. Not just shallow gasps, but deep. Soul-hungry inhales. He opens his eyes. You stagger. Sir Ulrich weeps. A knight weeps did he pays you with coin, a ring, and 3 jars of honey. You take them, mouth dry with disbelief. You return to the village. You are changed, not cleaner, not wiser, just heavier. You walk past shuttered homes. You whisper to locked windows. You keep working. You drain buboes. You bind boils. You perform mass burials with a priest who no longer knows his own name. You teach the children to sing a rhyme. While washing their hands, ashes and thyme, rosemary vine, clean your fingers or fall in the brine. They laugh. Some even believe. You are a barber, a surgeon, a liar, a hero. You have cut the rot from flesh, carved fear from faces, and poured vinegar on scenes. But the plague doesn't care. It returns, again and again. And so do you. Because that's what barber-surgeons do. They return. They don't retire. They persist. And as long as someone knocks, as long as someone coughs, as long as a mother holds her child and says please, you will rise. You will answer. You will boil water. You will sharpen your blade. And you will try again. Because trying is what you have. Trying, and a pole outside your door. Striped in red and white, dancing in the wind, like a promise made to no one, and everyone. And the rhythm, still pounding. Slice, stitch, spit, pray, boil, bleed, repeat. The village is quiet. Too quiet. Not the peaceful sort, the bad sort. The something's brewing in the bowels of the earth sort. The kind of silence that falls just before a storm or a sermon. You know this silence. You've stitched this silence into skin. You've bled this silence from veins. The crows are gone. The wind smells like someone stirred the graveyard with a rusty rake. And your front door, it just moved. You weren't expecting company. You were halfway through sharpening your scalp knife, humming an old rhyme about itchy feet and witches' boils, when the latch rattled once, twice. Then again you open it, blade in hand, expecting the usual, a coughing child, a bruised apprentice, a farmer with his thumb sewn to a shovel. Instead a woman, tall, veiled, cloaked in ash and damp. She smells like iron and lilies, and beside her, a burlap sack. It twitches. You glance from sack to woman, from woman to sky. The clouds are watching. They always are. I need a barber, she says, voice steady as the plague cart's wheel. I'm one, you reply. I need a surgeon. That, too. She pauses, then lifts the sack. It's possessed. Possession isn't in your usual list of services. You cut, bleed, lance, boil. You have 3 jars labeled hope, maybe, and definitely not, but exorcism. That's usually the priest's department. You peer into the sack. 2 yellow eyes blink back. Something snarls. Something mutters. Something that might be Latin or indigestion. You close it quickly. I see, you say. She removes her veil. Her face is hard as salted bread. Her name, she tells you, is Isolde of the Fens. Her husband died last winter. Her son went mad last spring. Now the cat speaks in rhymes, and the potatoes scream when boiled. Coincidence, you murmur. No, she says, a curse. You want to laugh. But you've seen too much. You've stitched wounds that refuse to close. You've pulled teeth that bled for 3 days. You've watched a man forget his name, because a crow flew over his shadow. So you nod. Leave it with me. She does, and vanishes into the fog. You set the sack on your table. It snarls, purrs, curses. Your lineage. You try your usual cure, a vinegar. Poultice. It burns a hole through the cloth. You add rosemary. It sneezes. Then says your haircut is uneven. Demon confirmed. You consult your books. Well, your book. A ragged compilation of illustrated guesses titled Unnatural Ailments and Where to Shove Them. The section on demonic extraction is mostly wine stains and margin notes. Try fire, leeches. Pray harder. You consider all 3. Then you do what barber-surgeons do best. Improvise. You tie the sack shut. Toss in a dried rat tail, blessed probably, and set it next to a burning sprig of juniper. You chant something vaguely Latin, pour a circle of beer, and tap the sack 3 times with your shaving stro. It spits once, then falls silent. Success. You're not sure, but it's quieter now. That's progress. Next patient, Sir Edgar the Bald. He arrives on a cart, pulled by goats. Not a noble steed, but more loyal. His complaint. Baldness. You suppress a laugh. You've amputated toes, removed growths shaped like countries, and stitched a man's ear to his knee once by mistake. But baldness. Fix it, he growls, slapping a coin pouch onto your table. It chinks. Heavier than usual. You nod. It will be done. You reach for your hair tonic, a legendary blend of goose fat, nettles, and whatever was left in your cauldron last week. You smear it across his head. Thick, greasy, fragrant. He winces. It burns. You smile. That means it's working. Does it grow hair? No. But the tingling distracts him from asking questions. He returns 3 days later with a scalp redder than the bishop's wine, but filled with hope. Hope is profitable. Speaking of bishops, Father Durant appears that evening. White robes, sweaty brow, carrying a tooth. Not in his mouth, in his hand. I need you, he pants. It spoke to me. You nod. The tooth. He nods faster. It hissed. You boil wine. You set the tooth on your table. It's large, yellow, cracked like old sins. You tap it. Nothing. You sniff it. Smells of confession. You hold it to your ear. Nothing still, to be safe. You paint it with mint oil, and bury it in the outhouse behind your hut. 2 birds drop dead overhead. You mark that as uncertain result. Midnight. Your shack is full of fumes, vinegar, soot, burning sage. The demon sack purrs in its sleep. The barber pole outside your hut sways like a drunk monk. You stare at your tools, each one with a name. The ear lifter, the boil fang, the finger finder, which has never found anything. Each tool, a testament to survival. Because you've realized something, haven't you? Being a barber-surgeon isn't about healing. It's about holding the line between death and life, madness and sense, curses and coincidence. You are the wall, the scabby, shaking, vinegar-soaked wall. And though no one sings of you in poems, though you stink of leeches and disappointment, you endure, because the village endures, because someone must keep the blood flowing, even if it flows the wrong way. Morning comes, Isolde returns, the sack is still. She nods, drops a coin, leaves a feather. You say nothing. The feather smells like Ashdod. More villagers arrive. Berta, the snorer, whose husband swears she's possessed. You prescribe onion paste. The twins, who share a cough and a goat. You give them licorice root and a tale about forest spirits who like polite children. The miller's wife, who wants her freckles removed. You hand her crushed daisies and lies, all in a day's work. And so, the rhythm beats on snip, stitch, bleed, burn, curse, cure, soak, return, pray, poke, salve, swear, sharpen, blades, and try not to care. The world is chaos, but you, your order, or a reasonable impression of it. And when the next sack arrives, this one meowing in 7 languages, you'll open your door, and you'll begin again. It begins again with the pole. Always the pole, drenched in dew, shivering in the dawn mist. Its red and white stripes spiraling upward like a barber's promise. Come the broken, the bruised, the bitten by fate. I'll bleed you with style, and stitch you too late. The crows have returned, good omen, perhaps. They peck at the tow pit behind your shack with renewed interest. You're sharpening your second-best lancet. When you hear the knock, not the desperate bang of a man who's lost a finger, not the soft rattle of a mother carrying a child. No, this knock is ... confident. You open the door, and immediately hate what you see. Dr. Elberth of Ghent, feathers in his hat, leather satchel, too clean to be useful. Robes dyed the shade of expensive, accidents. A golden monocle dangles from his neck, purely decorative. Much like the man himself. He smells faintly of lemons and smugness. I am here, he announces, to offer medicine. You stare, he continues. I heard there was a plague, a need for a real physician, an educated man. He eyes your shack, and I thought, well, someone must be filling the gap. He says, someone like it rhymes with vermin. You nod, smile, and slam the door. But he's not the problem. Not yet. The problem arrives an hour later, in the form of Lady Cecily Brightswater. 4 guards, a box of coins, and a request. I require a love potion, she says, draping herself across. Your goat bench. You blink. Love, you say, is not a disease. It is, she replies. An affliction of the soul. My heart is in torment. You open your mouth. Close it. She continues. The local priest says love is suffering. I say, I'd rather suffer with a tall man who smells of cinnamon. Do you have anything? You do. Well, you have a bottle labeled elixir of affection from your grandmother's recipes. It smells like beetroot and regret, but it fizzes, and fizz equals magic in most circles. You hand it to her. She downs it in 1 sip, then leaves. You 3 silver coins, a sprig of dried lavender, and a smile that could curdle milk. You don't ask who the target is. You never do. Meanwhile, Dr. Elberth has set up a tent right outside the market, with banners. Banners they read, healing, without bleeding, no more leeches, real medicine from a real university. He gives lectures, demonstrations. He hands out pamphlets to peasants who can't read. They eat them. He wears gloves. He measures pulses. He washes his hands. You know what that means? He's not to be trusted. But then comes the twist. Late one evening, 2 of Elberth's patients arrive at your door, whispering, limping. They look guilty. His salve burned. One says, lifting his tunic to reveal a rash shaped like a bishop. "He made me drink mercury," says the other. "Said it would align my spleen." You nod, and for the first time in days, you smile by morning. Your shack is full again. You don't have pamphlets. You have reputation. You have the scar on your hand, from lancing a boil the size of a goose egg. You have experienced painful, smelly, unpaid, but still. They come. The blacksmith's daughter arrives with a lump behind her ear. You cut it. It squirts. You call it victory. The mayor's wife wants a birth tonic. You give her mint honey and a prayer not to twins. Old man Wulfric swears his bones are haunted. You rub him down with garlic and whisper, "There, there." He sleeps better. You are winning, bleeding, but winning. Then something strange happens. A crowd gathers at your door. Holding candles, they chant your name. Not the whole thing. Just Barber, over and over. You open the door. They fall silent. "Miracles," says a woman in the front. You brought back Marion's boy. You cured the priest's whispering teeth. You made Tome's wife like him again. You didn't. Not really. You just boiled things, rubbed things, and said things in the right order. But to them, you're not just a healer. You're a prophet. You panic. Prophets die, usually on fire. You tell them no. You're just a man, a blade and a beard. But they chant louder. "Prophet, prophet, prophet." You shut the door. Barricaded with old bedpans. Hide behind your leech jar. That night, you dream of fire. Of banners bearing your name. Of angry bishops with flails. You wake. Up screaming. A cat screams back. Possibly the demon cat. You don't check in the days that follow. Things spiral. Lady Cecily returns, glowing. "He kissed me." She beams. You nod. "Then he stole my necklace and joined a troupe of traveling lute players." You nod again. "I want a curse now," she says. You hand her a jar of spoiled jam and a beetle. Tell her to whisper her enemy's name into it. At midnight she pays you double. Elberth gets desperate. He hires a juggler to entertain while healing. The juggler drops a blade on a merchant's foot. The merchant comes to you. You amputate the toe. You name it. Elberth. The village starts to shift. People wear garlic. Hang your picture badly drawn above their doors. Your name becomes a chant. A curse. A plea. You're no longer a barber-surgeon. You're a symbol. You don't want this. You want it to cut blisters and go home instead. You're the center of a strange faith, built on fever, desperation, and luck. Then comes the trial. The bishop arrives, robes flapping, eyes narrow. He demands answers, accuses you of heresy. You offer him tea. He declines. You offer him a poultice for his gout. He accepts. 3 days later, he blesses your shack. Victory, but hollow, because now there are pilgrims lining up from other villages, asking for your handkerchief, your sweat, your footprints in mud. You sell none of it. You hand out tonics and stitched rags. You work until your fingers bleed. You treat, you clean, you hold the line, and yet, at night, you still remember the first patient, the boy with the split lip, and fear in his eyes. You remember the first toe, the first scream, the first lie, and you wonder, ... What if you'd said no? What if you'd run? But you didn't. You stayed, because the pole waved, because someone knocked, and because Trinevin blindly, stupidly, desperately is what barber-surgeons do. You snip, you slice, you scream, and still you rise. There's a smell in the air again. Not the usual. Not sweat, or ash, or wet wool. Not garlic from the apothecary's cart, or boiled vinegar from your fever stews. This is different. It smells like burning, and not the quiet, comforting kind. Not the fire in the hearth sort. This is destruction. Kindling turned to memory. Wood turned warnings. You step outside your hut. The sky glows orange. The shadows danced like demons on stilts. And then you see it. The tent, Dr. Albert's tent. It's on fire. You run, because of course you do. You're not cruel. Not yet. And besides, his medicines might explode. By the time you get there, the cloth has collapsed. Smoke coughs upward into the starless sky. Villagers stand in a circle, silent, watching, not helping you find Elberth near the ruins, covered in soot, half his fancy tunic burned off. He's coughing, trembling, but alive. You grab his arm. Did someone? He nods. Double quotes, 3 of them. Hoods. They said I was false medicine. Said you were the only truth left. You freezed his eyes blaze. They said your name. It takes hours to put the flames out by dawn. Nothing remains but ash and melted ambition. You limp back to your hut. You can't sleep. You boil water. Burn rosemary. Wash your hands until your nails ache. This is wrong. This is not what you wanted. The next day, the king's courier arrives, on horseback, wearing gold and red, carrying a scroll with a seal. Thicker than your thumb, he announces himself, like he's unveiling a statue. You are summoned to Cromere Keep by order of King Edron III, for consultation on matters of public health and loyalty. You blink, he adds, immediately. The journey takes 3 days. Your donkey throws a shoe. You run out of hard cheese. You sleep in a ditch beside a drunk friar, who swears he once dated death. When you finally see Cromere Keep, it is less castle and more mountain, with windows guards meet you at the gate. They don't smile. They search your bags. They question your leech jar. They confiscate your laughing tonic, a mistake now. They're giggling during inspection. Eventually, they lead you inside. Up marble steps, past stained glass saints, and golden torches, until finally the chamber, wide, empty, cold as regret. At the far end, 3 men sit behind a stone table. One is a bishop. One, a noble. One, an old man with ink-stained fingers and half an ear. "Barber," says the noble. "We have questions." The next hour is not pleasant. They ask about the burning, about the villagers, chanting about your rise in influence, about the girl. "Who claims your tonics? Let her see angels." About the priest who said your name. Mid-sermon instead of God's. You try to explain. You're just a man, a knife, a bowl, a few herbs. You treat wounds. You drain boils. You help. That's all. They nod. They write. Then mutter. Then comes the worst part. The door opens, and in walks King Edrin. He's not what you expected. He's young, pale, dressed like someone who hasn't touched dirt in 20 years. He stares at you, then smiles. "I had a boil," he says. "Right here," he points. "Lower thigh. 2 of my physicians wanted to cut off the whole leg." He pauses. "I heard of you, the barber-surgeon from the provinces. So I waited, and guess what?" He lifts his tunic. A scar, small, neat, barely. "They're gone," he says. "I lanced it myself." You blink. "Your Majesty," he grins. "I copied your method. Boiled wine, needle, steady hand." You gape. "I owe you," he says. Then he turns to the council. "He lives." They look stunned. "I want him kept alive and working, officially." The bishop opens his mouth. "But sire, officially," the king repeats. And just like that, 2 are knighted, sort of. Technically, you're now royal practitioner of common remedies and uncommon results. No land, no sword, but a seal, a title, and a bag of coins. Heavier than your sins, you return to the village with a guard escort and a banner bearing your initials. People cheer, they chant. Children throw herbs at your feet. Even Elberth nods from a bench near the well. "I hate you," he says, but respectfully. But peace, it never lasts, because now everyone comes. Nobles from distant towns, priests with secret boils, mothers with strange dreams, wounded knights with curses. Not injuries. They think you can do everything. You cannot, but you try, because trying is what you have. Trying in vinegar. And then comes General Velric, blood on his tunic, a sword wound in his side. "I want you," he growls. "Not your fancy court doctors. You nod, you cut, you stitch." He grunts once, sleeps the next morning. He gives you a dagger and says, "If the war comes here, stab me, before they catch me." You keep the dagger. just in case. Later, a child is born in your shack. The mother names him Snip. You try to object. They insist. The church asks for a meeting. They're concerned about your influence, your patience, your potions. They suggest more spiritual supervision. You respond by treating the bishops infected. Thumb, he cries. Then thanks you. Then leaves. But the pressure builds. You are now needed in 5 places at once. People wait for days. Fights break out. Rumors swirl. You hear one. Boys say you can raise the dead. You hear a girl claim she saw. You speak to the moon. You laugh. Then realize you haven't slept in 3 days. And then, man arrives, dressed in black. No name, no smile. He carries a scroll, unrolls it, and reads, by royal decree. Effective immediately, your hut is to be moved and reconstructed near the city square. To better serve the people. You blink but, hut, it will be burned. Officially, you open your mouth, close it. He hands you a gold coin, for the inconvenience. That night, you stand beside your shack. Everything you built, every stain, every crack, every toe you pulled, and bucket you screamed into gone. You salvage what you can. The leech jar, the rusty scalpel, your grandmother's moldy almanac, the rest. Ash. They build you a new clinic. Stone walls, glass, windows, shelves, assistants. You hate it. To clean, too quiet, but they come still. Because a pole still waves outside, and your hands, calloused and cursed, still hold the line. You are not a prophet. You are not a prophet. You are not a magician. You are a barber-surgeon. You snip, you slice, you scream, and you endure, because someone must, because the world breaks, and you stitch it, one wound at a time. There is blood in the mortar. You can smell it. Not fresh, not bright. Old blood, buried blood. Blood that seeped through straw and wood, and soaked into the stones they laid for your new clinic. The one the king ordered, the one they praised, the one they built to top your burned hut's ashes. And your secrets, and your pit, your toe pit. You told them not to dig too deep. They laughed, and now the ground moans. You've heard it for days now, low, wet, almost like wind, but not. It hums beneath the floorboards. Sometimes. When the rain falls sideways and the chimney howls, you hear something else too. Barber, B-E-R. Your name, but not from above, from below. You've been busy, the kingdom is fraying. Rumors crawl. Across the countryside like lice, a noble poisoned his own wine. A monastery saw its abbot levitate. A village vanished after mist fell and did not rise. They all send for you. You ride, you cut, you cauterize. You stitch dreams shut and drain. Nightmares dry. You do what must be done. But every time you clinic is colder. The shadows are longer. The blood takes longer to clean. Then one night, you find a toe on your doorstep, wrapped in a rag from your old hut, tied with thread. Fresh. Still warm. You don't scream. You never scream. You whisper. It's starting again. You bury it deep. Beside the goat trough. No markers. But the next morning, there are 2 more. One blackened, one twitching. And this time, your assistant sees. What is this? He gasps. You tell him it's a joke. A patient's gruesome prank. But he doesn't laugh, and neither do you. Later that week, Sir Brannick arrives. A knight, tall, grim, wearing 3 swords and a bandage soaked to the bone. He staggers into your clinic like war on legs. What happened? You ask. He says one word. You freeze. That word hasn't been spoken since the burning, since the war of the pitchforked dead. The one where you earned your scar, the one where the dead did. Not stay dead. You treat him. Cut the rot, burn the edge. Pour vinegar, like holy wine. He weeps. Not from pain. From memory. They're stirring again, he says. Something old. Something wrong. And they're whispering your name. You nod. Of course they are. You return to the toe pit. You dig. 3 feet down. You find bone. Not old bone. Bone with skin. With teeth marks. With a name scratched into it. Your name. You bury it again. Deeper then. You pour oil. Then fire. The earth. Screams you pretend you didn't hear. The next night, you dream of the first toe, the one you pulled from a drunk soldier, who spat blood and sang songs about angels with knives. You kept it, out of habit, and then the next, and the next, 50 toes in total, each labeled, each pickled, each stored beneath the floor. When your hut burned, they should have vanished, but they didn't, because things that are buried improperly never leave. Then comes Mother Gresha, the village midwife. She's weeping. You hold her hands. What is it, she says? The babies are born with names. You blink. What? She sobs. They open their mouths and whisper names. Ancient ones, not their own. Some even say yours. You don't respond. You hand her rosemary. You tell her it's the water. You lie. Because you've heard the names too. In your sleep. In the wind. In the pit. El Birth. Returns not as a rival, as a refugee. His eyes are hollow. His hair white. He kneels. You were right, he whispers. It's not medicine, not plague, not madness. He holds up a jar, inside a tooth, still chewing, nothing else. Just ... Chewing, it came from a corpse, but it wouldn't stop. You take the jar, lock it in a box, place the box under a stone, pray, it stays. The king sends a messenger, a new one, wearing black, with gloves. His eyes are sealed. Shut wax, he hands you a scroll. Barber-surgeon, you are hereby ordered to report to the citadel at first frost. Rumors spread. We require certainty. Bring your tools, bring your truth. You burn the scroll. Too late. They already know. The floorboards bleed. Not metaphorically. One night, after pulling a tooth from a bishop's mule, don't ask. You step into the clinic and feel wetness. Red, thick. It pulses between the cracks. You mop, you scrub, you chant the rhyme. Your grandmother taught you, toe to tooth, and blood to bone. If it walks, don't let it roam. It doesn't help. You hang. Rosemary ... The walls twitch. You open every window. The air bites. You try to close shop. The villagers beg you not to. Only you, they say. Only you keep it back. You want to scream. What is it? But you know. You always knew. It's the price of the pit, the weight of every toe. Every lie, every time you stitched. Death closed and called it healing. You're not a healer. You're a stopgap. You've delayed the rot, not cured it. And now the rot wants in. A child knocks at your door. Carrying a satchel, she speaks. Backward, not in riddles, not in mystery, literally backward. You record every word, later. In your bed, you whisper it aloud. And from beneath the floorboards, you hear something, repeat it. Your last patient for the week is Queen Marivelle. Arrives at dusk, no guards, no trumpets, just a cloak and a limp. She sits on your bench. You have my husband's favor, she says, but I come for something more serious. You nod. She lifts her dress. Her leg is covered in sigils, burned into the skin. Fresh bleeding, double quotes. Came from a dream, she whispers. Then I woke up, and they were there. You don't flinch. You clean them, you apply nettle salve. You wrap it tight. Then you lie. It will fade. It won't. You both know it. But truth is medicine only the dead can digest. Night again. You sit by your window, scalpel in hand. Leeches hissing in their jars. A candle stutters beside your cup. You whisper the names you remember. Wulfric, Cecily, Gresha. The night, the cat, the king, each one a stitch, each one a scar, and somewhere beneath you they whisper too. The earth breathes, the pole sways, the pit sings, and you sharpen your blade, because the blood, it will not stop, not now, not ever, and someone must hold the line. You wake in the black hour before dawn. There is a knock at the clinic door, not pounding, not urgent, a single, measured knock. Then silence, then again, 3 knocks, then 1, then 4, the rhythm of a ritual. You open the door, no one there, but, on the ground, a crown made of teeth. You don't scream, you don't blink, you simply pick it up with iron tongs, drop it in a jar of vinegar, and mutter, no, because you've seen this game before. And the thing that wears teeth always, comes smiling. The sun never rises that morning, not properly. A gray sour light filters through the mist, like soup through a colander. The crows sit in perfect rows, along the thatch. The pole in front of your clinic leans just slightly. And from beneath the floorboards, something is ... humming, not moaning, not groaning. Humming ... a lullaby, one your mother used to sing. One you never taught anyone. You whisper back, "You don't belong here." The floor answers, "Neither do you." The queen returns. This time carried on a wooden stretcher, flanked by 4 robed priests, with eyes like boiled pearls. Her skin is pale, not from sickness, but emptiness, as though the blood beneath has packed up and gone. Her lips move but make no sound. You examine her. Every vein has vanished, not collapsed, not bruised. Gone, the priests whisper. Her body no longer believes in blood. You want to laugh. You don't. You ask them to wait. Outside, they refuse. You raise your scalpel. They hiss. You cut anyway. No blood, only smoke. It rises in ribbons, shaped like names you'd hoped were forgotten. The citadel summons you again. This time, no courier, only a riderless horse with your name branded into its side. It waits until you pack your bag, then trots, unprompted, toward the horizon you follow. Because of course you do. Because what else is there? The pit, the humming, the jar of twitching teeth on your shelf. You arrive at the citadel of Worm Hollow. Black stone, no windows, screams that echo downward. They take your bag, they take your tools, they leave you with nothing but a robe and a blindfold. You descend stairs for what feels like days. At the bottom a room, circular candles, floating without flame, and seated in a circle the pale. Procession, you've heard whispers of them. Once physicians, now something else. No mouths, no noses, only needles where eyes should be. They speak through quills that scratch by themselves. Barber, we have watched. Barber, we have weighed. Barber, the pole leans. You nod. You want to ask what they are. You don't. They already know. They speak again. There must be a keeper. There must be a cut. Would you be the blade? You say nothing. They take that as yes. They hand you a vial, inside something that beats. When you return to the village, no one is there. The streets are empty. Windows boarded, buyers out. The pole is on the ground, snapped, blood smeared in runes across the clinic door. It was never just toes. You step inside. Your leech jar is shattered. The bones beneath the floor have risen, arranged themselves into a shape. A throne, and seated atop it too. Or a version of you. Same scars, same hands, but the eyes gone, replaced by tiny spinning bones. It speaks. Your voice. You took what you could not hold. You stitched what should have screamed. You fight it. Of course you do. You slice, you cut, you scream, but everything you ever cut remembers. The puss-filled night from part 2, the baker's thumb, the woman whose baby was born breathing tar. They all rise, they all cry. He helped, he healed, he lied. You run to the church, to the well, to the tow pit, each one worse than the last, each one whispering, each one singing that same lullaby. You dig up the pit. It is no longer a hole. It is a mouth, wider than your clinic. Inside, darkness, ribs, teeth, and tiny red flags bearing your initials. You drop the vial into it, the one from the procession. It stops singing, for a moment, then it laughs. Elberth finds you at dawn, covered in ash, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling. He says nothing, just sits beside you. After a long silence, he says, "I always hated you." You nod. "I hated me too." Then you both laugh, because really what else is there? The queen dies. The king vanishes. The kingdom fractures. They say a barber-surgeon from the provinces could fix it all, but he hasn't been seen, not in months. Some say he walks the roads now, carrying a black bag with nothing inside. Others say he went into the tow pit and became its voice. A third whisper says he's still cutting, just deeper, just quieter, and if you listen closely, You can still hear the rhythm. Snip, slice, scream, silence. This is how it ends. Not with fire, not with blood, not even with a scream. It ends with a cut. The last one. The one you make into yourself. You awaken not in your clinic, not in your bed, not even in the village that once knew your name. You awaken in a field of gray grass. It hums. Every blade sings with voices of the cut. You are barefoot. Your hands are empty. But the scars, they remain. You walk hours, days. Time no longer keeps appointments here. You pass trees shaped like lungs, breathing out fog. You cross streams that run backward. You find footprints your own from before. You are not lost. You are summoned. At the center of this quiet world is a pole, like your clinic's, but taller, alive, rooted into the sky. Like a bone through heaven, it leans not forward, not backward. Toward you, at its base, sits a chair, not a throne, not a stump, a barber's chair. Your chair stained, cracked, still, holding the impression of your oldest regret. You sit. Of course you do. And from the clouds above he descends. Not death. Death came once already, and left disappointed. This is someone else. A man of gauze and shadow. A robe of bloodied linen. Eyes like mirrors. Mouth stitched shut. He does not speak. He opens his bag. Your bag. The one they burned, buried, blamed, then begged for. He sets it down. He opens it. Empty, except a scalpel. Yours old. Blunt at the tip. Still smelling faintly of onion and vinegar. He points to you. Then to your chest. Then to the sky. The meaning is clear. There is still one wound left. You take the scalpel. Your hands do not shake. Not anymore. You know what to do. You cut. Slow. Careful. Just beneath the ribs. A single incision. And from it not blood. Not bile. But names. Gresha Elberth. Sir Brannock. The Queen. The boy. Born backward. The baby with the tar cough. The man who wept vinegar. The goat with the second soul. The village. The pole. The pit. The teeth they pour out in a flood of memory. Sighing. Singing. Sobbing. Your scalpel clatters to the ground. You are empty. Now and, for the first time since your first patient, you breathe. The man nods. He picks up your scalpel. Breaks it. Hands you the hilt you deserve to keep. Something, then he turns and walks into the sky. Like mist retreating from dawn. You awaken again. This time for real. In your clinic. In your chair. Everything. As it was. Even the pole stands upright. The pit is gone. Not filled. Never there. Elbert brings you tea. Gresha brings you bread. The villagers line up. But no longer with fever or wounds. They come with laughter. With stories. With thanks. You. Cut no more. You. Stitch no more. You teach the next. A boy with gentle hands. A girl with a surgeon's memory. You sit. You smile. You remember. Years pass. You grow old. The pole withers. The wind changes one day. You walk into the fields. You dig one last hole. Small. Just wide enough for a bag. You set it down. Whisper a name. Not yours. Not anymore. Just a name of thanks. And you walk away. The kingdom does not burn. The rot recedes. The dead stop whispering. Because someone once snipped, sliced, screamed, and saved us all. The tale ends here. But if you listen at night, beneath the stars, beneath the earth, beneath your breath you will hear it. That rhythm, the one that held the world together when no one else could. Snip, slice, scream, silence, salvation.